T-Bro in the morning. You got Laura Stiles. You got Rosenberg, Senator Jesse Hamilton. Give it up for him right now. How you doing, sir?
Doing great. Pleasure
Well,
to be
you got
here.
your crew with you. They ain't clap for you.
Come on,
Hey, I got to clap too,
Yeah.
man. I got to give it up over here.
Still not.
You come with an entourage, they got to clap, B.
Yes,
you know what I mean? We
yes.
got to get at this.
Phenomenal entourage.
So you're representing what district? Or you're representing New York City, New York State as a senator, but you're representing also some specific areas here in New York City with some of the new challenges that we have.
And like one of the most diverse districts in the state.
Yeah.
I cover Sunset Park, Gowanus, Park Slope, Prospect Heights, Crown Heights, Flatbush, and Brownsville. I do 5 mailers per month to 25,000 people with 5 sectors in my district. Sunset Park being in 3 languages. So it's challenging, but I love the job.
And I guess the first thing we want to tackle, because I'm looking at your social media over here, is one of your hot buttons right now is the broken windows policy of kind of how the NYPD has been policing, I would say, the city for the last couple of decades, but more specifically here recently with how they're dealing with arrests and what they call broken windows policies.
It's a disturbing time right now with the Trump administration. Many people in my district are living in fear. For the first time, I'm seeing adults walking around fearful of being deported. So we have the IDC, the Immigration Defense Coalition, where we give free legal services to people who are approached by ICE or are facing deportation. We have it's shown that if you go to a deportation hearing, there's a 97% chance that you'll be deported if you don't have an attorney. A lot of people are intimidated now. They don't know where to go. So right now, we're telling people, don't be afraid. We're here to help. My office is a district office offering free legal services. We're going to be putting $11 million in the budget for legal representation for people. And we don't want people to be fearful of the police if they do have problems. And that's what we're trying to work out right now.
And so the police chief O'Neill, Jimmy is his name, James O'Neill, right?
O'Neill.
They call him Jimmy. Jimmy sent a memo to the whole team yesterday, right? Saying, listen, we're not going to be supporting Trump and the federal government, and we're not going to be arresting people who have expired visas. And your New York City municipal card is the ID that we need to see. No questions asked. Are you still concerned?
I'm still concerned. I was concerned originally with ID NYC because that's a database where they're actually giving your address, where you live. And for those people who got the ID, they felt a sense of security. But now we know that New York City is working with the federal government in giving some of the names to people who were here undocumented. And I'm not,
and let's sit right there for a second, because we had a discussion on the air.
Right.
Because we were asking the same question. We hear the mayor say this is a sanctuary city. We're not going to be supporting Trump. We're not going to be rounding people up, et cetera, et cetera. We hear the police commissioner saying this about the IDs. But we're still hearing about checkpoints that ICE has set up. We're hearing about them going into hospitals, right? So we've been looking for someone to explain to us, who do we trust and who do we believe?
When the mayor says he won't be rounding people up, he doesn't say we're not going to give information to the federal authorities. He's not saying we're going to stop the federal authorities from deporting people. So he's basically saying, I'm not doing it, but I'm not going to stop them from doing it. And so that's the distinction that we have to have in the conversation that we have to have. Are you giving information to the federal government, and are they acting upon it and rounding people up?
And do you believe our mayor is giving information to the federal government?
I believe that information is being given to the federal government. They want to increase.
And more than just criminals, because there are people in the city who are like, look, if you're committing crimes and you're here without the proper documentation, then boom.
Yeah, but with the stop and frisk policy, young kid could have had some marijuana on him. He gets stopped. Is that a crime that should get someone deported?
Right.
So it's and people using the fear factor that these people are drug dealers. Most folks here undocumented.
I don't think people in New York City believe all that.
No, I believe some people in Staten Island may believe it.
Okay, fair enough.
Some parts of New York City
and Long Island.
And Long Island. But in the heart, the Bronx and Brooklyn, we know these people get up every day early in the morning, 4 or 5 o'clock. They work hard every day. They're not committing crimes. And so we need to get that narrative out there that, I'm an immigrant. My grandparents came from Barbados. My uncle's the oldest living Bayesian in the United States. So we're all immigrants here. And so now that the immigrant color has changed to predominantly people of color, that's the dynamic that's different now.
They want to tag you with illegal.
Right.
instead of undocumented, which is I
Right.
feel like is a way to characterize people and make them appear like
No,
criminals.
illegal alien.
Right. Well, you're from outer space.
Yeah, for the
Right,
space,
right,
I will
right.
tell you though, if
Human.
you're not documented, you know, Ebro, my theory on never doing two things that are technically illegal at the same time.
Never commit a crime while you're committing a crime.
Exactly. So if you're undocumented, I would say while smoking weed is certainly not remotely a thing to be deported for,
Right.
certainly be mindful of it. If you know you don't have documentation, particularly in this era, I wouldn't be freely smoking weed in a place where you get caught for it. You
Yeah,
know what
for
I'm saying?
sure. But you, Senator Hamilton, so I want to stay there for a minute because it's very interesting. You, somebody that is a representative of our city and the districts that you cover, believe that someone is giving information to the federal government. They're using that information to round people up. How is that different than what was happening before? Because Barack Obama deported the most people of any president we've ever seen. It wasn't a part of his narrative, but it happened.
Right.
And if you live in Washington Heights or you live in Brooklyn, ICE raids have been happening. They've been knocking, opening people's doors and taking people out of houses for the longest. How is it different now? Is it just Trump's tone, or is there something really different?
Well, you're absolutely correct. Under the Obama administration, ICE was coming in and making raids. But people weren't fearful. He wasn't stopping people from coming into the country. He wasn't stopping people who had green cards from coming into the country.
Wasn't stopping people who had their paperwork correct.
Correct. So I think there's it's a uncertainty in the minds of many people. It was one game under Obama. Now it's drastically changed under Trump. So right now, the tone of Trump and the harshness of his policies are driving a lot of people in fearful of being in this country. People are going to Canada now, losing fingers, numbness from frostbite for fear of being deported back to a country where they could be detained and possibly executed.
And is that why? I mean, obviously, you guys sent a request to us to come up here today, and you have the people with you who also represent different community groups. Is that what is the forefront of movement today in the community? Is to make sure people know who to speak to, what your rights actually are, and to find sanctuary if you feel unsafe?
Yeah, we've been working with El Grito with broken windows, stop and frisk, and police brutality has been ongoing in our communities. It didn't stop with Trump. We had Brother Tucker here, whose son was murdered by a police officer. Mm-hmm. So we're really on the ground trying to make changes. We're in Brownsville. One of our anti-gang informers, a man was shot right in front of me, and the police seemed like it was no big deal. So we have 56 community-based organizations now coming together in Brownville, teaching coding, STEM. All right, and now we have young kids talking to their friends, saying, "Hey, coding is cool." Telling the other teachers in other schools. Now we have principals calling us saying, "Hey, we want to get coding in our schools." So what we're trying to do right now is we can't have 13% of our young kids reading at grade level in Brownsville. It's just a blueprint to get incarcerated, get into trouble, do drugs, and also we're dealing with the mental health component. The second leading cause of death for people 16 to 35 is suicide. It's epidemic proportion. So right now, people are focusing on Trump, but we're saying, look, Trump has only been here less than 100 days. The problems that we have in our community has been here for decades. So we're trying to change the focus and say, okay, now that you're mad at Trump, let's take some of that energy and deal with the real issues that are happening in our community.
I like
That's a very smart approach because we are all naturally and reasonably hysterical about Trump. But the amount that Trump can impact us, though some of it could be great, in some ways may be overstated, whereas we have issues that are more impactful every single day that we need at least some focus on that. We can't spend all of our energy, especially on something that is a federal issue, when there are all these local issues that still need to be dealt with.
You brought up coding, which we talk about when we talk about on our show about the jobs of tomorrow and where our public schools aren't preparing our kids for what those jobs will be. And you talk about in Brownsville, kids learning coding because that's where the jobs will be in the next 10 years. Automation is happening, right? Technology is happening. And if our kids can't get those entry-level positions and aren't prepared at the public school level, at the high school level for those jobs, and the only way to learn that is to go into higher education, there's going to be a lot of people who never get those jobs or who aren't prepared to take those jobs when they're available.
That's correct. The borough president, Eric Adams, gave us $500,000 for 3D printers. My son told me, he said, hey, Dad, I'm going to postpone college. I'm going to get a certificate in coding because you can make $80,000 a year. I'm like, really? So we don't have in place, we're not giving our kids the skill sets they need to graduate from high school to go on to get a career where they can take care of their families.
That's right.
Part of the problem now is that we can't afford to live in our communities anymore, with gentrification. So people are protesting about Trump, but they're not protesting that our schools are the most segregated in the country. Some hipsters say, hey, we feel for you, but they don't want their kids in the same school as ours.
That's right. And then they open a charter school. They educate their kids separate from the rest of the community.
Correct.
Funding and tax dollars they start pulling out. Come on over, bro. You got something you want to say? Introduce yourself to the audience. You can keep your seat there, Senator, and he can. We'll slide him the mic. Go ahead.
How you doing? My name is Dennis Flores. I'm with El Grito de Sunset Park. We are a police accountability organization. Last 20 years, we've been organizing Cop Watch, training the people on how to document, observe the police with cameras. And for years, we've been documenting how the cops interact in my neighborhood in Brooklyn with street vendors, with street performers on the subways. And these are the targeted arrests for broken windows, so-called quality of life crimes. So right now, under this de Blasio progressive Democratic administration, people get deported for hopping the turnstile, for riding bicycles on sidewalks. So
Because they get the ticket, then the ticket becomes a warrant, and then they
get fingerprinted, and then the NYPD sends those fingerprints to the federal government. So then what happens is that they now have a paper trail of who they are. Mm-hmm. So when they go to court, they're showing up in court, and they're deporting people straight from the court. So these are not convictions. These are people that are getting arrested for these things. So it's kind of crazy. And for us as police brutality activists, a lot of the victims that we've documented who get brutalized by cops, one of the charges that they get hit with is resisting arrest. And this is across the board. If you're a victim of police abuse, cops have to justify why they assaulted you. So they're going to tag that on as resisting arrest. Mm-hmm. You could get deported for resisting arrest. So this is crazy. So you could be a victim of police abuse, and then now you become a victim again where they can deport you. So, this is not progressive. And this really falls on the lap of this mayor, de Blasio. And I know that he comes out here a lot to Hot 97. Mm-hmm. And our listeners, your listeners, need to know that if this man is not going to end broken windows, we should not reelect him.
And when you say broken windows, because some people don't even know what that means. Like, what does that mean?
So they say that this started with Giuliani. This is how far back Giuliani and Branton, where they say that if there's a broken window in a neighborhood, then there's graffiti, there's people urinating on the street. So, this is a way to criminalize poor people.
So then they go into that neighborhood heavier.
Yes.
With more police, police it harder, right? And they begin shaking people down.
Exactly. So, like, the number one broken windows arrest is hopping the turnstile. So how many people are hopping the turnstile nowadays? Not many people can afford to pay for this for the.
And they keep driving the fares up to make it harder for poor people to get on the train.
They should be lowering the price of the fare for poor people. You know what I'm saying? Instead of there's a lot of we have a website, right? endbrokenwindows.org, where folks should learn and get informed about our platform and our demands that we're making. So there's a lot of things that they can do to end broken windows. And that's our agenda. We're just pushing that forward.
So let me challenge you a little bit, because we talk about on this show, and I find myself saying a lot, many mornings, reminding our listeners that this city and this country, if you're in a certain economic bracket, doesn't care about you. They don't care. This city, the way we're watching the real estate prices just skyrocket in Brooklyn specifically. I mean, Manhattan's always been what it is. But Brooklyn's getting crazy, Queens is getting crazy, and South Bronx even right now is about to get crazy. They are not, and people, well, it's not fair. It's not fair. It is absolutely not fair. It never was fair, and they aren't even interested in making it fair for you. How much of where we're going as a community here in New York City is about helping people understand that the economic direction of this city is never going to stop. And instead of putting yourself in harm's way, sometimes I find myself telling people this all the time. Why do you still live in New York City? Oh, my family's here. It's time to go. Because otherwise, the police are cracking down on you, broken window, Eric Garner incident where they're choking a man and killing him on the street, shooting people.
Targeted because of broken windows.
Targeted because of broken windows. What are we waiting for?
I mean,
Do we really believe that these big corporations are going to stop coming to New York City? Do we really believe that people with money are going to stop buying property close to their jobs? Because that's what gentrification really happens. Is you have people with money is like, I'm not commuting 2 hours to work. I'm going to buy this building right here. That's one train stop from my job. I'm going to ride my bike when the weather's nice, and I'm going to go one train stop. Thinking about themselves and people like them, not thinking about the greater community, right? Like at a certain point, do we expect that this train is gonna stop? Do we expect that they're gonna lower MTA prices? Like that's never gonna happen. They're not gonna lower the tolls. The tolls are going up. The tolls are going up so you can't drive your car. Then the train prices is going up so you can't get on the train. And we still, like at a certain point, I don't want to go to your club anymore, bro. Like if you don't want to let me in, I don't want to go. Because I'm not going to jail. So that's why I push back and I say, I love this fight and I love this conversation. But when does it stop? Because I don't believe that it's going to stop anytime soon.
Well, what's definitely not happening is that not enough brown and black people are organizing themselves.
There you go.
You know, we're just waiting on the mayor, the Democrats, or whoever to speak for us. But our issues are not really being addressed by none of them. So if we're not organizing against gentrification, like in my building, I live in a rent-stabilized building. We had to organize a tenants association. We had to put the landlord in court. We had to organize our building because our rents are going up. They're not making repairs. So it's not just gentrification.
Well, then they don't, and isn't the loophole there? If they make repairs, then they can raise the price on you. Isn't that a thing? Like if they change the sink out because they remodeled your shit. Okay. Now they changed the price on your ass.
It's like a rent-a-center. It's called Major Capital Improvement, MCI.
Okay.
And it was passed before I became a state senator. And what it does is they do a repair on a building they raise your rent, let's say $10 a month. Even though it's paid off, that increase stays there forever. So what you see is people doing more major capital improvements to the building so they can raise the rents. But no one's checking to see if the work was done in...
How much the work was.
How much the work was. And that matters. So right now in Crown Heights, we have free land, an armory. And the RFP went out, and we said, they said, well, that's the people in the community. What do you want? You want a state-of-the-art rec center? They say, yeah. They said, you want affordable housing? They say, yeah. And so they said, okay, we're going to give you a state-of-the-art rec center. What that does, it takes away 80% affordability of the affordable housing.
Right.
So when we asked them for the records, for the financials, I'm an appraiser, licensed appraiser, they said they will give it to us. Called them up, the BFC in the city of New York, and they still didn't give it to us. We had to file a FOIA complaint.
Because they didn't want you to see it.
They didn't want us to see it. And they said, well, no one's ever asked us for financials before. I'm like, how can you give you free land and you don't want us to see the financials? So that's what we're doing now. Myself, Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, Assemblyman Walter Mosley, and Assemblywoman Diana Richardson, we're fighting for affordable housing. And this is the big push. As you said, we're being pushed out of New York City.
Yes.
And we could build affordable. Don't let them fool you. They can
build
affordable.
And the mayor said he's trying to do it. Do we believe him?
No.
Well, what we want to say about that is, and let me introduce myself for the room. My name is Shannon Jones. I'm the co-founder of Bronxites for NYPD Accountability. We're affectionately known as Y Accountability. And what we're going to move away from is calling it affordable housing. That's a term coined by politicians and by real estate developers that poor people will latch on to affordable. That must mean it works for me.
It makes it feel like I could get in there.
This must be for me. No, absolutely not. The calculation for affordable housing is using the index of the 5 boroughs plus Westchester County.
And then it's a median number, right?
The median area income. But if you include Westchester County, which is the highest income county in the state of New York, it pushes the median income past what regular New Yorkers can afford. So we must stop saying affordable housing because that's not for you. Well, because
it's really affordable for who?
Correct. So when you hear your mayor get on this program and speak about affordable housing, he's not really speaking to your listeners. He's trying to appease your listeners. It's like putting a Band-Aid on $1.50.
Right.
And hoping that your listeners
go get some
will
stitches.
feel satisfied
and
feel that as long as I keep applying for these lotteries, eventually I will get called. But I really want to answer your question with respect to gentrification and when will it stop. Dennis Flores is absolutely correct. It stops when the community galvanizes. That's what why accountability is about. Understanding your community power and what you can do as a community to affect change for yourselves, not through politicians. Politicians have to do their job and let them do their job. Our job is to make sure that we're organized and galvanized for ourselves. And that's in the area of gentrification. That's in the area of the decimation of NYCHA housing. That's in the area of police brutality. And this is nothing new. In the area of deportation and immigration seizing on people in the city. And again, this is nothing new. It didn't start with Trump. Trump's been in office 33 days. The deportations and seizing they did in this city 2 weeks ago were from Obama. He will not begin doing his own deportations for months. This is still Obama strategy
So it
going
isn't
into
new.
effect.
It isn't new.
Absolutely not new. Anyone that has had their boots on the ground inside of these communities has always known that Mexicans living in the city of New York have always been fearful of ICE deportations. Central Americans have always been fearful. My great-grandfather came to this country from Barbados in 1922. My other great-grandfather came to this country from Barbados undocumented through Ellis Island in the 1920s. So we all know about being afraid of the governmental authority coming in and tearing you away from your family. So it's not new.
It's not new.
Absolutely not.
But Trump is using it as a marketing tool to satisfy his base that he's already.
Not a marketing tool. He's very serious. It's not a marketing tool. Now,
You're just saying it hasn't kicked in yet. Whatever his version is could be even worse, but hasn't started yet.
absolutely correct. And what I would also say is that politicians that have been in place in the city of New York throughout the Obama administration have not spoken out against ICE deportations. Because it's new hot button and the city has created this new boogeyman through Trump, their new ideas are anti-Trump. No, it's not anti-Trump. It is galvanizing the community against injustice and against immoralities, which manifest through the NYPD. These policies and practices must be enforced, reinforced, and reiterated through the NYPD. That's the entry point to ICE.
Right.
If you walk through Marcus Garvey Park at 3 o'clock in the morning, because to cut through is faster than going all the way around Fifth Avenue, all the way to 120, and you get a ticket, that'll get you in the pipeline for deportation, whether you have a green card, whether you have a resident card, or whether you don't. So this is where we're at right now. So that's why accountability does. It's not just limited to the hot button topic that's all over mainstream media. So it is important, and if I could say anything to your listeners, because over the next few months, you're going to have many politicians killing themselves to get on your program and speak to the demographic that listens to the music that's played on Hot 97. And what I would encourage people at home to do is to organize community power. I don't care if it's just 2 people in your building or on your block. You must always film and document police activity wherever it's happening, whether they're standing still or whether they're arresting someone. You must also organize your building against greedy landlords that'll try to push you out. If you live in NYCHA housing, we have to speak about dilapidated conditions. I'm a NYCHA resident for 13 years, born in Brooklyn, but live in the Bronx now. And we have to speak out against dilapidated conditions. The mayor of the city of New York endorsing these NYCHA raids. They just took 7 guys out of the Kingsborough houses the other day.
And what's that about?
NYCHA raids, I don't know if you recall this, the Eastchester Gardens 120.
Yeah.
In April, 120 men, 78 on the street, about 20-something that were currently incarcerated, were extricated from their homes in order to effect RICO charges against them. These guys have no jobs or working at Home Depot, but they're RICO operatives operating a criminal enterprise.
But weren't they saying it was gang members, though? Or some was gang members and some was this, and it was scammers and credit cards and this
so
and that.
now I'm going to give you the blueprint. Any community that you want to demonize and eradicate, you'll use the worst names to attach to that community. So gang members must mean crime. So anyone who works every day, I don't commit crimes. Those are not my kids. We have to get the gang members out. What they did in effect was remove fathers from their children. They removed uncles. They removed nephews. They removed workers. Let's be clear. So now you have these children.
And wasn't the number upwards in the total city because it happened in the Bronx?
Correct.
It happened in Brooklyn.
Correct.
It was about 400 people total.
Well, what you have is the biggest gang raid before the Eastchester Gardens was the Manhattanville Grant 100, right? After that, you had Eastchester Gardens 120. You have the Patterson houses 37. They just extricated 7 from Kingsborough houses. And this is a system. Because if you're talking about gentrification, how do we clear out NYCHA? Poor people in public housing are the last people to leave a gentrifying community. So how do you get these people out? If my son is brought in on RICO charges or in gang charges, whether the charges are pending or not, whether he's convicted or not, now the governmental authority through NYCHA can put me through administrative hearings to evict me on undesirable tenancy.
Right, because if they come visit you, I can also give you a ticket for that, right?
No, not give me a ticket. It's what's called permanent exclusion for undesirable tenants.
Just because of the charge. So the charge alone says they can say, oh, these aren't the kind of people we want here. Look at the charges they got. Well, we don't know if the charges are true. Yeah, but the charges are there.
Correct.
So you're already now, wow. That's deep. Yeah, please.
Sorry. Because we're talking about a lot of different things here. Let me come at you from my standpoint that my son was killed in 2005 by a New York City police officer. And instead of being looked upon as an angry black father, I wanted to do something to change people's lives, to change people's perception of a father in the community. So I started the Lay the Guns Down Foundation. I've been doing this for 11 years. We actually had a conversation, and I'm going to tell you what the conversation was about. Yeah, I was doing a promo, and it was with Uncle Murder, and he had a new album that came out, and it was right after Zarana Horton, the young mother in Brooklyn with the 12 kids got killed.
Right.
And I was upset because I didn't understand how could y'all promote something like that where this mother had just lost her life protecting kids in the street. Where we get lost at is that we don't understand. We understand, but we don't look at it, that this is a business, that people going to jail is a business.
Yeah.
People getting put out their apartments is a business.
Yep.
And we have to realize that first. And the first thing that you have to realize is that, like she said, you have to be willing to get up and do something. I'm tired of people talking, pointing fingers. What have you done? Stop sitting on the computer. Stop making phone calls and texts. Get out in the street and do something. Don't wait until someone get killed to want to do something about gun violence. Do what you can do today about gun violence so we don't have to worry about it tomorrow. The elected officials that you want to call yourself dependent on, there are some good ones that are out there, and that's why I'm standing here with this man. When I got invited to be on his task force, the first thing that I told him, if y'all playing games, I ain't got time for games, because I'm representing every parent that lost a child in this city to gun violence at the hand of a police officer, at the hand of somebody that looked like them. It has to stop. We have to come together. Stop pointing fingers and blaming everybody. What can you do? Find out when the next community board meeting is. Find out the elected official that is not voting on those bills to get the funding in your community. And you talk about regentrification. Every year, for the last 4 years, I've did an event at the Barclays Center called the Back to School event, Back to School Bash that Hot 97 sponsored, right? But I can't do that. I didn't do it last year, and I feel real bad because gentrification, because the businesses that were supporting that I made deals with to support me by promoting them are gone.
Yeah.
So these kids that we
so
were
let me
taking,
ask you, sir.
yes.
Let me ask you, sir, because that's why I pose this question. When I say when does it stop, right? What I'm talking about is we live in capitalist America, and we live in New York City.
Absolutely.
Even more specific, right? The biggest city in the country, one of the wealthiest in the country, right? Where the world's playground almost, right? Because most of the people buying the real estate in Manhattan ain't even American. They're Chinese, Saudi Arabian, they're billionaires from all over the world. They're the ones putting up these businesses and buying a lot of this real estate. And that's why I always push back, and I'm like, okay, if this city is taking your family from you, right, and putting you behind bars, and that's what this city's doing, and we could get organized, right, but they're still going to create systems to put people behind bars who are poor. we've seen it 100 times in this country.
But we're also allowing it and doing it to ourselves.
Well, some
as
of it.
well.
Listen, we can't sit here and act like there's not scammers in the hood running credit card
Absolutely.
scams. We can't do that.
Absolutely.
We can't do that. We would be lying to each other.
Absolutely.
We can't sit here and act like there's not people in gangs. We
Let's-
can't do that either.
Let's be clear. When the city of New York chooses to demonize our people, they're not going in Gerritsen Beach and looking for credit card scammers.
They're not.
They're not in
Well,
Brighton
just like
Beach
they're not
looking
blocking
for
up. They're
credit
not
card
locking up the
scammers.
heroin addicts in the suburbs either.
Exactly.
And the people
It's
selling
only here.
prescription
But what
drugs.
we have a moral responsibility to do as black people and as brown people is to push back and to fight back. There's no way in the world that we accept futility. We cannot accept that.
So let
That
me
it's
ask you a question:
futile
are in this room, right? Because where are we on public school versus charter school versus how we're educating our children? Where is this room at on that?
Well, if you want why accountability to answer that question, that's a very simple answer. I was a graduate of the New York City public school system on the high school level. I received 2 degrees from CUNY. They were not from charter school. As you can see, my eloquence has provided me with a very high quality education that I'm proud of. We have to be very clear on what charter schools are about. And all charter schools are not created the same.
Facts.
There are many charter schools started by black people and African people that are not getting the funding and resources to survive. Meanwhile, other folks are creating charter schools that have become
Tons
a
of
monopoly
resources.
game to them that they are hedge funding, right? And what charter schools are selling black and brown people are division. Charter schools are put in place to make you feel like you are getting a better education for your child than those other people. We cannot absorb that type of division amongst our own people. There are folks in the charter school industry, because that's becoming an industrial complex, charter schools, that are making millions of dollars.
And point out once again that are funded by Wall Street or
Correct.
venture capitalists.
Hedge funding.
Yeah.
And the reason why I use that hedge funding is because that's a high risk financial game to play. Hedge funding. These people are not investing in charter schools and
So then
putting
let
the
me
money
ask you
in
the next
savings
question,
accounts.
which is why I asked you this.
I was a school board
Well,
president.
and the next piece
Okay,
of that,
all right, okay.
and I love that you're the school board president. The next piece of my question is, because I hold our schools and our teachers unions and our school boards accountable, right, for our kids' future. We put our children in school so that they could get prepared for the future, and that's the idea. It's the idea. Our schools aren't doing that, specifically here in New York City. Our public schools, and there are some, but by large numbers are not preparing our kids for life after school and getting into the workforce. When are we going to fight to make those changes so that our future our 10-year-olds over the next 10 years, when they're 20, 18, whatever, are prepared? Because it doesn't feel like those changes are happening. And that's why I believe some people are going the charter school route, because they feel like it's their best option.
Right. So this is the design and business that was just spoken about. When you are working to demonize a community, marginalize a community, you tear down the institutions that they depend on. We already know that New York City public school system, as well as many public school systems nationwide, are based on Eurocentrism. The key to giving black and brown children what they need in this city to be prepared for the future that they choose for themselves, not the future that real estate developers, not the future that the police, not the future that politicians want for them. It's the future that they want for themselves and their parents want for themselves. Is not word one. Get Eurocentrism out of these schools. My son is 21 years old. He graduated from high school 3 years ago. He went through 14 years of school, learning very little about himself as a black man, himself as an African, himself as a descendant of chattel slavery and abominable racism and uncompensated labor in this country. It is not taught. You cannot
Of course
have
it's not
children.
taught. We live in
You
America.
cannot-
It's
right,
never
so
gonna be
then-
taught.
No,
Right.
we have a duty and responsibility as
To hold our
African,
schools accountable.
Not only that, because that's creating victimhood. When you totally rely on institutions to assist you. I totally have the ability as a parent to teach my son what it is he needs to know about himself. So I will also offer to African parents
To get involved.
no, not just get involved. Homeschool your children. Teach them what it is that they need to know. Stop relying on these Eurocentric institutions to teach your child nothing
So let me ask you the
about
next
himself.
question. Let me ask you the next question because I'm not one that believes you go to school because you need to learn about yourself. So I agree with you. I believe that is what we're supposed to be doing at home, right?
The parents have to take some of the responsibility.
Well, that's why I said I think you need to be learning about yourself and
You
your
have to learn
culture at
yourself.
home. And specifically when you're black or brown or from another country and your heritage isn't going to be taught in an American school. It's just not.
Right,
It
but
could be,
let's talk
but it's
about
just not. I wouldn't depend on it.
But let's
But
talk
my
about-
challenge to you is, when are we going to hold these schools accountable for getting our children prepared for work so that they can then have an income, so that they can also participate in the buying of buildings, land, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? That's more my
I have a
concern.
public school 169, Asian parents, all right? When they have PTA meetings, you have 200 parents coming out in the morning. These are people, immigrants here, could barely speak English, but they have a vested interest in their child's learning. So I'm in Sunset Park. I'm like, wow. So right now you have 60% of the kids at Brooklyn Tech coming from Asian kids who are first generation, second generation coming to the country. Why? Because their parents put the time in to go to PTA meetings, put time in them for going to prep courses, and they value education. Something has happened where people of color, where we were, learning, when at one point in this country, it was illegal to teach us how to read and write.
That's right.
And something happened where we were excelling well in education, and now parents don't put the time in with the child's homework. Our kids got the nice sneakers, the pants, jackets, whatever. They look great, but there's no computers in the homes. All right? I can go to the library, and some people are waiting online in the library to get a computer. Technology is the key right now. And if you don't have computer technology, knowing Google documents, Word Perfect, you're going to be out the loop. And so parents have to realize technology is the key. All right? We can't keep depending on the schools to educate our children, because if you don't demand that our children learn, they're not going to do it. We all know that some of the worst teachers are in the black and brown schools. Some of the better teachers are not in our schools. We know that. We have a high turnover of teachers in our schools. We know that. When I was school board president, I would have district-wide meetings. Not that many parents would show up. But if I have free food, parents would show up. And parents that I did see coming to the meetings were the parents whose kids always got the awards. So what did we do? We gave awards to the kids who were borderline. Packed house. Why is that? First time kid got an award. So that's what we have to figure out ways how to attract parents to get them interested and making sure the children are learning.
But you are talking about, and both of
But what
ma'am,
you
I
don't
remember
see
your
in what
name,
you don't see in
but you are
Chinese schools, you
talking about
don't see
accountability.
NYPD in Chinese
a whole
in
other
the
thing.
school.
Yeah.
No. That is the same thing. Because if we're creating a supposed learning environment in the front door, but when you get inside the door,
Feels like a jail.
there's correct. So it's all spinning full circle. That's the type of broken windows. It's all connected. Let's connect the dots. You have your children in these inferior schools where the best and the brightest are not teaching in the schools that black and brown kids attend. Then you install the NYPD in those schools to impart broken windows on junior high school students and high school students. Remember at the International High School in Park Slope where NYPD beat up the kid for having a pin in his eyeglass? So he was penalized for being poor because he had to stick a pin in his eyeglass, correct?
So his glasses would stay on.
He went through the metal detector, which was there to begin with, and he explained, I'm holding my glasses together. So instead of the administrative officials and instead of the police department that uses propaganda to run around and show us when they're jumping rope and getting cats from undercarriages, they show you that on TV, but they're not going to show you when they beat up a kid entering school, a brown kid, on time in the morning because his mom couldn't get his glasses fixed and he fixed it with a pen to be present and available to get the learning that was available to him at that time. So when we start making distinctions along cultural lines about who cares more about their kids or who's more involved in their kids, we got to be very, very careful about doing that.
What exactly are we being careful about?
What we're being careful about is that when we don't speak wholly about the circumstances that impact black and brown children over other children from other cultural communities, we're doing ourselves a disservice and we're feeding the beast of division. We're feeding that beast by saying that Chinese parents show up to the PTA meeting. Like I told you, my son is a graduate of the New York City public school system.
But that's
Could
your
I
son.
tell you? No. Could I tell you when the PTA meeting was, when he was going to school in the South Bronx on Washington Avenue. That's by design, not to cultivate participation. If the PTA meeting is at 2
Oh,
o'clock.
so they wouldn't tell you.
At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, when the poor people of the South Bronx need to work in order to survive, and you put the PTA meeting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that's not setting the stage for parents to become involved. Everybody activists in this room knows how the system operates in a slow gas to dehumanize, to fracture institutions for our children. And that's why we're here, and that's why this platform is extremely important. If I didn't say so in advance, I appreciate this platform because it's allowing us the breath to speak to exactly who we're talking about.
So in that instance, right, because in all of these conversations, which is why I go back to coding, I go back to public schools, getting our kids prepared for tomorrow. Oftentimes on this program, we talk about what we putting in our kids' bodies, the food that we're eating, right? The juicy juices and the fried this and the cheese on top of that and the extra seasoning on this and the fake this and the processed that and the this and that and other. A lot of this is accountability, and the name of your organization is Why Accountability. But also, as you pointed out, you're a working parent, right? You get up, get your kid ready, 6 a.m., 7 o'clock, you're out the door, boom, 8 o'clock, kids at school, 9 o'clock. Hopefully you're at work after being on a crowded train and walking and doing this and that. You don't get back in the house till 6, 7 o'clock at night. You're exhausted. The kids are frustrated. You're trying to find some quick food to put in their stomach, so you buy some bullshit, which fucks up their behavior system, and then et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And then all the other challenges you listed. As we sit here today having this discussion, what do we want people to walk away with today other than the fact that shit is fucked up? Because that's what we're talking about right now.
I would say shit is fucked up, but you have the power to change it. Pull that power from outside of yourself. Understand what the issues are and understand those issues from people in the community that are just like you. Not people that have not stepped in the community in 5 years, 10 years. Get it from them. I will repeat, brokenwindows.org. We've submitted demands to the mayor of the city of New York. We're not flapping gums on the book, 300, 400, 500 comments, then sign off and go watch
you
reality
down there at City
TV.
Hall, let's get to it.
No, we drafted demands. That's my quality public education, by the way. We drafted demands. And that's what the community has to get in practice of doing going forward.
And Ebro, can we address this and Broken Windows with de Blasio next week? Can we try
Absolutely.
to
Let's give de Blasio up and ask him.
We'll ask him about it directly because I understand how important an issue is because it's hard when we hear this many things which you've pointed out so well. It's overwhelming. You're like, holy shit, damn, before I know it, my brain's going back to 1805, these problems. You know what I'm saying? So where can we start? You think End Broken Windows is a starting point that could actually lead to changing some things?
Right now, this year, we're going to introduce Raise the Age. You have like 26,000 youth.
And that's already supported by the governor.
It's supported by the governor. The Republicans are coming on board.
Which Republicans?
Patrick Gallivan, Fred Ashaw. And so
we gonna see when it's time to vote. Because just so everybody watching this understands, we've been talking about Raise the Age on this program, and shout to all of the people involved in that. Tamika Mallory has been on the program a lot. Carmen Perez has been on the program a lot, and Raise the Age up there in Albany has gotten support from the governor and gotten support from one of the houses or both of the houses. But when it's come time to vote on it, right, with the gerrymandering that takes place in Long Island where the redistricting and blah, 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 and then all of a sudden you got another person representing this district, we never get it voted. So New York State and North Carolina still put 16-year-olds in jail with grown-ups.
Right. But for the record, though, in my opinion, in terms of this conversation, Raise the Age is still it's very important. It's still a reactionary conversation. It's a conversation of what we do when people get in trouble. With the Broken Windows, correct me if I'm wrong, we're trying to get to something, this is where problems begin, right? I'm just trying to see what as a community can we support that starts at some level before we're at the point where we have to deal with the age because now things have happened that are bad.
We had legislation I tried to introduce last year. It's called Mental Health 101. Every teacher in New York State takes a mental health course.
What about the police? They needed to.
Yeah, we talked about
More,
that.
more than ever.
The police.
These motherfuckers run around here crazy.
If you want to talk about getting 16 and 17-year-olds off of Rikers Island, let's be clear too. I'm gonna tell you guys a new curse word and get your FCC senses out. It's called reform. That's a curse word right about now because reform is a buzzword for not eliminating the practices that have us in the predicament that we're in. When people say,
tell me again. Why? But reform is something we want.
no.
Yeah, we do.
No.
We don't, because that means they're not
you
going to
don't.
actually change the
No,
system.
that means the institution is still in place. We're just doing something else. So when you have raised the age and you say, oh, we're not putting 16 and 17-year-olds in Rikers, but it's okay to put them through the jacked up family court system. No. What anti-police brutality activists, cop watchers in the community are saying, no. What we're saying is that stop arresting our youth for minor offenses. Stop engaging in escalating contacts with our youth that lead to arrest. These are broken windows offenses. Stop
and
having
also
these
articulate
contacts.
for people who don't understand or are watching. When you live in New York City and you're young and you just being a kid out here in the city, you can get in trouble in ways that you would never get in trouble if you lived in the suburbs.
No, there are ways you would never get in trouble in the city of New York if you're not black or brown.
And then there's that too.
Right? I'll give you a great example. Let's look at the street performers or the gentlemen that do Showtime, right? Let's look at them versus skateboarders. When the skateboarding young children were in their community skateboarding everywhere and scraping up all the stuff and the parents were getting sick of it, what did they put in place? Skateboard parks. What did the mayor of the city of New York do? What did Mayor de Blasio do soon as he stepped foot into office? Criminalize street performers in Showtime.
I didn't even know that.
Right? Because that's a broken windows offense. So now instead of supporting the community through art, through opportunity, through dance, no, we're going to criminalize them. So who are we talking about? Black and brown youth that are anywhere between 14 to 25 years old that have actually a skill. Look at the gentlemen from the Waffle Crew that have now gone all over the world showing us their talent. Meanwhile, other gentlemen are criminalized. So this is what we are talking about. When we say reform, what that's saying is that we can undermine, we can demonize, we can fracture institutions that support us and then just have fun with institutions that hurt us. So you won't hear why accountability used the word police reform. You will not hear that. Okay, if you really want to get gangster, I can say as an African, as a black woman, NYPD should be abolished. And I can make the case for that, but we're not here for that today.
It's another can of worms for
That's
sure.
another can of worms. We're not even going to go. We're not even going to go there. But what we're trying to tell your listeners for today is that understand the very, very basics. How do our black and brown people enter the criminal justice system?
And it's broken windows policies.
Broken windows policing that Mayor de Blasio, who has appeared on your show numerous times, have doubled down on.
And you feel like he
tripled
doubled
down
even
on.
though he's saying that he hasn't.
No, he's explicitly stated that he supports broken windows policing and will continue to use it. That's not in dispute. That's absolutely not in dispute.
Okay, so real quick. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes,
You've been waiting
lady.
here. What do you want to say?
I live in Brownsville my whole life. It's crazy. Like, I seen it all. My brother, he was involved with the police and stuff. I mean, he don't really do anything. Only thing my brother do is try to survive in Brownsville. He have a couple of friends who tried to survive as well. Actually, I'm gonna tell you a time or something that happened. One time, Marshall came to my house, knocked down my door, tried to arrest me, my brother, and my mother. They saying something about a court. I don't know, something. And they said somebody snitched. I guess somebody snitched or whatever. He was saying that my brother sell weed. He don't sell weed. So where are you getting this information from? Two floors from me downstairs, they got arrested too. So they holding us in this car, and you searching the house. We don't even have a warrant. So what's going on? Like, what are you looking for? We don't have any weed. My mother don't tolerate that. My brother have a job. I'm a dancer. Like, I'm trying to make it as well out the hood. I'm trying to get out ASAP because this is no joke. Like, nobody wants to live in the projects. Like, it's crazy. It's miserable. Like, I need to get my mother out the hood. Like, that's what I'm gonna say. My mother, she never been arrested before, and she's been arrested. It's crazy. Like,
I mean,
and
she's never done anything wrong, and yet she's had
never,
police in her
ever
house
in her life.
with handcuffs
And
on.
this
Yes.
is what you're talking to, and what you're talking to, and what everyone's talking to is the way poor people in this country that are black and brown for centuries.
Yeah.
Which is why I always go back to the challenge of when are we going to start making sure that our kids are prepared for the jobs the stuff we can't control, which you just spoke to, right? Information, activism, being active in the community, knowing the way we're criminalized and we end up in the system, and taking responsibility for our actions and making sure that we control our neighborhoods and our community as much as possible. Because the pressure ain't stopping.
Right.
It's not stopping.
It's not.
The pressure's not going away, right? And even more so now, where you have another real estate boom on the way, right? With the stock market doing so well and breaking numbers and things like that, more people are going to start buying up this land and pushing more poor people out. And when the police can get a bonus or get an increase because there's more tax collections because the real estate is nicer, that's why they run around and mess with everybody, because they want you to leave so that somebody else could come buy the land and they can get more tax dollars and get raises.
We call that sanitized.
Can I say something again?
Yes.
I've been living in Brownsville for 21 years. I'm about to turn 22. Now, I'm looking at my neighbors now. My building was full of black people. And I tell you, now it's full of Chinese, a lot of people moving out. I don't know where they going. But
Upstate, down
like,
south.
it's crazy. Like, it's getting for white people. Like, why y'all want to live here? We live in the hood. Like, why y'all want to come here now? Like, y'all wasn't here years ago. Like, you want to come here now? Like, what's going on?
Well, some of them might be poor white people. Some of them might be rich white people that's trying to turn the building into something else.
Like,
Because that happens too.
a lot of things is changing.
That's why
For
it's
real.
critically important to demonize young black and brown youth through NYCHA raids and call them gang members. Do you know the system that NYPD uses to say that you're in a gang? A piece of paper. And all it says is, does he wear a certain hat? I mean, you could go on any of activism websites we have the form on what they use. If I walk around with this sweatshirt and I put on a red hat with it, I could be doxxed by the NYPD as being a gang member. So when you read these media outlets calling our children gang members, no, that's not fair. But then what happens is that's utilized as a tool to bust doors down. Now, this young lady's mother, she may say, you know what? I'm not having it. I'm out of here. I'm out of here. So that's mission accomplished, because then that's a vacancy in NYCHA. Yep. So then now you can begin to sanitize a community. Look on 125th Street and Lexington Avenue, where they've installed a mobile command station with flashing red, blue, and white lights. Permanent installation. Why? Because that building was sold to Extel Corp for X amount of dollars, and they're going to put a luxury $1 million high-rise there. So that community has to be sanitized. So they sanitize the community by criminalizing them and demonizing them through mass media. This is outrageous. And this is where our community power comes in to stop it. Why accountability is committed to stopping NYCHA raids. Why accountability is committed to stopping police brutality. Why accountability is committed to stopping gentrification. All these manifestations that continue to erode the institutions that we have built, the fabric that we've built. This young lady's been in Brownsville her whole life. There's people that have been in Brownsville for 40 years, 50 years. But now all of a sudden, the mayor, through the Department of Transportation, wants to paint the streets on Blake Avenue, on Stone Avenue, on Mother Gaston. Now, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, in 21 years, you see the paint white now on Mother Gaston, when
Because
it wasn't
it's
for
new people
20
moving
years.
in there.
Because it's new people moving in.
Yeah.
So when new people move in that are not black and brown, the governmental authority says that they must have nice things, but she couldn't. Why couldn't she have the street painted for 21 years on Mother Gaston or on Blake or on Pickin? Why wasn't that an entitlement by the city of New York? Mayor de Blasio has been in here now
But that's
for
money,
2
though, ain't it?
years.
Ain't that money?
That's Department of Transportation, where they choose to budget their income. And this is what I have to say about the mayor. Show me your budget, and that's where you stand. Because if you gave $90 million a year, starting in fiscal year 2015, to put 1,300 more cops on the street, this is why when the police get called, 24 of them come, because it's too many of them. But then we still have SYEP lotteries. She might get picked, she might not. Kids get picked one time when they 15 and never get picked again. So we still doing lotteries for jobs, for youth. And complain the youth are outside, the youth are in gangs, the youth do this, you
Nothing
do
for
that.
them to do.
But then you create a lottery system where they all might not get picked. But then you fund a governmental authority, a criminalizing authority, paying people 50, 60, 70, 80, 6 figures to live outside the 5 boroughs or in Throgs Neck or the South Shore, Long Island, Nassau County, to come into this 5 boroughs and then criminalize her? That's the budget that your mayor that will come on this platform has. Those are the questions you put to the mayor. Why are you putting money to police? If crime is so far down, ain't nobody smoking crack like that out here. Stop it. That was 1989. This is 2017. Why are you putting the money into that force rather than ensuring every single kid or young adult that wants a job from age 14 to 24 can get one without a lottery system? Why aren't you funding that and fully funding that? So this is where we are.
And let me ask you another question. And you still have a mayor, right, based on what you're saying, who on the other side has conservatives and rich people putting out bad press on him all the time.
That's part of the game that black and brown people can't engage in. We have to know.
So, no, but my point being is he's seen as progressive.
To whom?
Those people.
To those people who evidently would rather slander him or the police that
hate
turn
him.
their back on him or et cetera, et cetera.
Didn't we just have the commiseration of the assassination of Malcolm X on Tuesday? What did he say in his speech, the ballot or the bullet? This is in 1964. This is a game. People are installed to be the big monster, right? And then the Democrats come in and say, no, we're not that bad. We're going to save you. But then effective communities have no tangible results. That's the ballot of the bullet. Malcolm X, 1964, already laid the blueprint of how that game works. We on the ground cannot play that game. I live in NYCHA also. It's nothing stopping NYCHA from busting my door down at 6 o'clock in the morning. And that's what I want to say to black people also. Sometimes we over-contextualize these issues as being poor issues. These issues are black and brown issues that transcend status. I have a master's degree, okay?
So let me
I
ask
make
you,
decent money. It doesn't stop that.
Why for you do you stay in NYCHA?
I stay in NYCHA because of gentrification, because somewhere along the way, the mayor has stopped supporting working class housing for working people. They're trying to turn New York City into a renter's town where there's no home ownership. You go back 10 years ago, as a city employee, you could take a little class, learn about home ownership, and be offered a property and do it. Now it's a renter's town because it destabilizes the fabric of black and brown people. That's where we are. We have to know better than that. So then, if I'm in NYCHA, and let's be clear, my rent ain't $5 a month. People like to think people are in NYCHA. There's someone downstairs in my building that pays $1,600 in the projects that's dilapidated and underfunded. But what the mayor's trying to do is gentrify NYCHA by putting luxury buildings in our parking lots. He's slumming us out by not budgeting proper repairs. Think about it. 1,300 cops at $90 million a year are all of our repairs that NYCHA needs for 10 years. Show me your budget, and I'm going to show you what type of man you are. You are playing
and
games.
the budget is not public. The budget's public.
Budget is public. You go on OMB,
Yeah, the
it's
budget's
800
public.
pages. You go on
So
OMB
when you show
and
it, when you
read
say
it.
show it, you mean for the people to go look at it for themselves and see where
That's
the
right.
money's
So
being
you
spent.
see what's being budgeted for SYEP. You see what's budgeted for NYCHA. I don't want to hear no mess about NYCHA's federal. If you want to support the communities that live in NYCHA, you will shore up those buildings, stop selling the properties off to landowners, and stop playing games with the city of New York and the black and brown people. And again, let's connect those dots. On NYCHA grounds, NYPD is given the authority to enforce NYCHA rules. So when they do the smoking ban come November, there'll be a whole bunch more NYCHA residents going to jail for smoking a cigarette. Right? So then now we'll have that pipeline still churning, that business still churning, that mass incarceration, that industrial complex churning, where your son could end up making waistbands for Vicky drawers in prison, right? So that is what we're talking about. So it has to start at word one, with us getting the information from our own communities. Shut that TV off. Shut those news outlets off. They're telling you what they want you to think. Listen to community activists that are actually walking around on your block to talk to you about what needs to be done in the community. So these efforts are never futile for me. I don't care what developer comes. I don't care what rich person comes. I don't care what NYPD does. I've even had them try to snatch my phone when I was recording. I've had them jack me up at the 46th precinct when we went there to see about somebody getting arrested. But we're not going to stop. And the mayor works very feverishly to try to put that Band-Aid on the $150. So we go away and slink away. We're not going anywhere. We're going to fight and keep fighting and keep pushing.
Do you think
this city is
now? Let me ask you
ours.
this. Let me ask you this, and we're gonna wrap because I definitely want to have this conversation with the mayor. Do you believe, right, that the mayor appeases people that he knows is going to show up to vote?
Sure.
Does he believe?
Sure.
Does he believe that the people that you're speaking of, because we've see the numbers of people who have given up on voting, don't believe politicians work for them, aren't registered, don't care, won't listen to community activists in their community that are trying to help them. We've seen those numbers, right? And we've even heard it, whether the numbers are fake or real or whatever.
The numbers
A
are real.
politician,
Yeah, a
including
politician,
yourself,
they look at the prime
are
voters.
going to appease the people that he knows or she knows is going to show up and vote for them.
Right. People don't realize the prime voters are people who vote in primaries. A lot of folks vote in the general election. That doesn't matter. In New York City, predominantly Democrat. The city council, predominantly people of color, and we still can't get things passed. So we have a progressive arm in the city council, and as the sister said, for some of youth employment programs, we're not getting the funding. So what happens is any elected official looks at who votes, okay? Certain communities vote more than other communities. The communities that vote not as much as the more affluent ones, like say Brownsville, it's a large portion of my district, but I have a smaller section of Park Slope, but they vote in the same percentage as far as people coming out to vote. So we have to, and I think people are becoming apathetic to voting. They say, well, nothing's going to change, nothing's going to happen. That's why we're on the ground in Brownsville. That's why we have these people here today, this sister, Brother Tucker, to say we can make a difference. We're going to make things change, but you have to get out and vote.
And I think what I'm seeing is people are ready to work. That's the best part, right? Because we can sit up here and talk about all the problems all day, but if we're not ready to actually do some work, and that goes all the way down to the kitchen table, right? Of people actually spending time with their children and making sure that they're educating their youth, not only culturally, right, but about family and about what it's going to take to survive out here. Because, like I said several times in this discussion, it's not going to stop.
No.
This is not going to stop.
I think people are more aware now. You know, I think Trump has ignited, a lot of passion in people now to get involved. Because he's so outrageous and the things that he's saying that he's doing, people are,
I mean, that's the silver lining we keep hearing.
Yeah.
A lot of people that are anti-Trump have to admit that the way we are seeing people activate for whatever it is that they stand for is the silver lining.
Well, yeah, when you hear from people like you who've obviously been dealing with all of these issues for the entire time Obama was in office, right? Trump is almost a beautiful thing because this bullshit is all the same, but now at least the eyeballs are open. When these issues have been basically the same. This is, as much as we love President Obama, he was not dealing with these issues day to day. It wasn't possible. It wasn't even something he was able to get to. So there is a silver lining there, at least, that now people are paying attention.
I want to say something real quick. You see how the young youth, they look up to Lil Yachty, Maybe we should, talk about it to them, because if they talk about it, we'll listen. The young youth would definitely listen. Like, in the social media, should all go around and talk about it. Because I know I look up to Chris Brown, August Alsina. Like, if they'll talk about it, I'm listening. automatically.
Chris Brown, we'll have a discussion about.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
probably need to find you someone new to look up to. We'll start there, but I hear no, but you make a
Wait,
good
wait,
point.
wait,
You make a
wait,
good point.
but he do. Yeah, my fault. He do talk about Black Lives Matter and stuff. I be seeing him.
Sure.
But if the young,
And he got some other problems. That
right,
we'll
we
do
know,
it.
we know.
But no. But the point
We
is,
know.
but their point remains that there are people who captivate the youth,
Yeah.
and when they speak, people listen.
Look,
Right.
Yachty's been up here, and I've given him a hard time about his bars, but he's a great kid. He talks about positivity. He talks about not using drugs. He talks about not drinking. He's all
Yes.
about love and positivity. I don't know how socially active he is.
Well, the
at
difficult thing
19,
with
20 years
everyone,
old.
but all these kids, the challenging part is you don't know where anyone's from, but once they start getting money in their pocket, and I understand this, I'm not knocking them for it. And you're able to remove yourself. Let's take you, for example.
Right.
If tomorrow someone's like, yo, here's $1 million, you got a tour manager, you got an apartment in Manhattan,
I'ma
now, blah,
stay
blah.
humble.
But you might stay humble. But that doesn't mean your top priority every day is going to be going back to the hood and making sure everything works because you're so happy that you're good and your family's good. So that's a trap people fall into is because they do well themselves, spending your time.
And by the way, not
giving up.
everyone. We see LeBron James do a lot of
LeBron
work
does a great job.
where he
Yeah,
comes
he-
from.
he-
You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like we
he's
see
great.
LeBron do a lot of
but
work.
that gentleman also did not speak out on behalf of Tamir Rice. So I would like to answer you in that vein. We have to remember who controls these industries. I may get $1 million, but then that $1 million is also attached with where I appear
Yeah.
and what it is I say. And a lot of things that celebrities say, athletes say, musicians say are to protect white fragility. Let's be real about that, okay?
Well, they don't want to jeopardize that money.
No, not only jeopardize their own money, okay, because there have been athletes in the 70s that'll give up their money. They don't care about the money. It's not about that in of itself. It's about protecting the comfortability of those that are in power. Many people, what was the baseball player that said that his wife's family was affected by the Muslim ban? By the ban on African countries. And St. Louis fans went berserk telling him, stick to baseball, stick to baseball.
They do that-
And
that was this week.
That was this week. So what
But that happens to us all the time with these discussions.
Okay, so
all the
what
time.
that-
Stick to
but
playing
what that's-
music.
but
Play my
what
favorite
that's
rap song. We be like,
about
fuck
is-
y'all.
Is it to protect? It is to protect the fragility and comfortability of those that have the highest access.
But that's just
to
white
power
supremacy
and resources.
bullshit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's not just, oh, I have money for myself. And the dots connect again. Because we have our children in these Eurocentric schools, they're taught individualism, not a duty and responsibility as an African to your people. That's not being taught. You wake up from birth and you are overwhelmed with images of consumerism and individualism. So when you made it, and it fits right in to the fabric that white supremacy has laid for every one of us. So now when we talk about what a parent's responsibility is, the responsibility is to your people. Everything you do is for your people. This is what we mean by Ubuntu, Uhuru. I am because we are. I do this because we do this together. So this is why you have those individualist mindsets. So when I discuss celebrities or musicians, I look at them totally. I don't care what foundational program LeBron James does. If you couldn't open your mouth and support a 12-year-old that was murdered by the police within 2 seconds, those foundations that you use to funnel tax shelters for yourself,
You ain't with it.
Not with the shits. Not
Can-
with
can I-
it.
Can I say something? I'm gonna answer your question, right? When if I had $1 million and I left the hood, a lot of people would be jealous. It's jealousy that comes with it too. Like you can't go back to the hood right away and be like, yo, they'll look at you different, like, oh, she whatever. She thinks she good because she got more money than us, she rich or whatever. That's how some people look at it.
But by the way, that mentality's been programmed as well.
Yeah.
Of course,
Yeah.
people can't help it. But Ebro, you know there's only one song to play to end this whole thing.
New Africa?
New Africa. Let's
Sahara
play it right
Prince.
now. Let's play it
Yo, we're
right
going
now.
back. Yo, we got to buy
Let's do
some
it.
land, B. I keep telling y'all it's time.
That's right.
It's time.
And brokenwindows.org. Know your rights. Stay
There
out
it is.
there. Know
Great
your rights.
discussion.
Film the cops. Film the cops.